Imagine waking up one day and discovering that another country has renamed your city, printed maps showing your home as its territory, and insists that your state doesn't even belong to your nation. That is exactly what is happening in Arunachal Pradesh. Hidden in the eastern Himalayas, this remote Indian state has become one of the most dangerous flashpoints in Asia. China calls it South Tibet and continues to claim almost the entire region, despite it being governed by India for decades. But why is China so determined to hold on to this claim? And could this dispute become the center of the next India-China crisis? To understand the answer, we need to go back more than 100 years. Arunachal Pradesh lies in India's northeast, sharing borders with Bhutan, Myanmar, and China's Tibet Autonomous Region. The state may appear isolated and mountainous, but its location makes it strategically invaluable. It acts as a natural barrier protecting India's northeast and sits near some of the most sensitive areas of the Himalayas. The roots of the dispute go back to 1914. During British rule, representatives from Britain, Tibet, and China met to define the border between Tibet and British India. The result was the McMahon Line, which placed present-day Arunachal Pradesh within British India. However, China rejected this agreement. Beijing argued that Tibet did not have the authority to sign international treaties independently. As a result, China never accepted the McMahon Line as a legitimate border. When India became independent in 1947, it inherited this boundary and considered Arunachal Pradesh an integral part of its territory. China, however, continued to disagree. For years, tensions slowly increased. Then, in 1962, everything exploded. India and China fought a brief but devastating war in the Himalayas. Chinese forces advanced rapidly and entered large parts of what is now Arunachal Pradesh. Indian defenses collapsed, and many feared that China might permanently occupy the region. But then, something unexpected happened. After declaring victory, China suddenly announced a ceasefire and withdrew most of its troops. Even today, historians continue to debate why. Some believe China wanted only to send a political message. Others argue that maintaining control over such difficult mountainous terrain would have been costly and risky. Whatever the reason, the withdrawal did not end the dispute. China never gave up its claim. And in recent years, Beijing has become increasingly assertive. So why does Arunachal Pradesh matter so much? The first reason is geography. Control over this region would give China greater strategic depth along the Himalayan frontier and reduce India's defensive advantages in the northeast. The second reason is Tibet. China's claim is closely linked to its control over Tibet and its concerns about Tibetan identity and separatism. Beijing argues that parts of Arunachal Pradesh historically had cultural and religious ties with Tibet, particularly the area around Tawang. And that brings us to perhaps the most important reason of all, Tawang. This small town is home to one of the largest Buddhist monasteries in the world and holds enormous spiritual importance in Tibetan Buddhism. It is also deeply connected to the history of the Dalai Lama. For China, control over Tawang could become extremely important in the future succession of the Dalai Lama, an issue that carries major political and religious significance. This is why Beijing repeatedly protests whenever Indian leaders visit the region, and why it continues to rename places in Arunachal Pradesh on official Chinese maps. India, however, has firmly rejected these claims. Over the past decade, India has significantly expanded roads, tunnels, airfields, and military infrastructure across the region. The Indian government has repeatedly stated that Arunachal Pradesh was, is, and will remain an inseparable part of India. Meanwhile, both countries continue to strengthen their military presence along the border. Neither side wants war. Both nations are nuclear powers, and another major conflict would have enormous consequences not only for Asia, but for the entire world. Yet history shows that territorial disputes, nationalism, and strategic competition can sometimes create dangerous situations. Today, Arunachal Pradesh remains peaceful, but beneath its beautiful mountains and monasteries lies one of the world's most sensitive geopolitical fault lines. And as India and China continue their rise in the 21st century, this remote Himalayan region may remain a key test of whether the two Asian giants can coexist peacefully, or whether the next major crisis is still waiting in the mountains.